This coming Saturday is UFC Fight Night. Amanda Lemos versus Jessica Andrade for the main event in the women's strawweight division. Amanda Lemos is ranked number 10 as a strawweight, and Jessica Andrade, the former women's strawweight champion, is currently ranked number 1 as a flyweight. And this is her return to the strawweight division after having at least a couple fights and a title fight in the flyweight division. So this event is going to be taking place at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, as many fight nights have been over the last couple of years. And I wanted to go through and preview each one of these fights and give you at least my take and my opinion on who I think will end up winning each. But also wanted to focus on each one of these fighters' most recent fights. And I think that, honestly, UFC fight nights can give you a lot of really great fights. Of course, you have a lot of the main UFC events, the numbered events that are not as frequent, but are way more frequent than they used to be over a decade ago or so, and even only like 5 years ago. They've been putting on events just about every weekend over the last year at least, and it's been really exciting to watch. Honestly, I've really enjoyed having more UFC fights. There's more UFC fighters that they're bringing in. That of course because of either shows like The Ultimate Fighter and Dana White's Contender Series, and also Dana White's Looking for a Fight. So you end up getting to know a lot of other fighters that are more popular in some of the smaller, more regional promotions, and there are definitely going to be some of those on this on this event as well. Some that were not planned originally, but some that were. But I think it's going to be a really exciting event. I think the main event will certainly be one that you won't want to miss. And the first fight of the night is in the welterweight division to begin the prelims, and that is Dean Barry versus Mike Jackson. And Dean Barry is I believe this is his UFC debut. He has a record of 4-1, and his last fight was in December of 2021 with Titan FC, and he got a win via TKO. And Mike Jackson has a record of 0-1, as he actually has had 2 UFC fights, but he more recently, which was honestly a while ago, he had a fight that he originally won the decision, but then they overturned it to a no contest against CM Punk at UFC 225, and that was in June of 2018. So he hasn't been in the octagon for nearly 4 years at this point. And actually, the last time that I remember Dana talking about this fight after UFC 225 was over, he was saying that Mike Jackson wouldn't fight in the UFC again. So it's interesting to see that Mike Jackson is back for another fight. So I guess they're giving him another chance, and we'll see what ends up happening here. But my prediction is that Dean Barry will end up winning this fight against Mike Jackson. The next event in the prelims is Marcin Prachnio versus Philippe Lins. And Marcin Prachnio, and this is going to be in the light heavyweight division. Let's see. And the second fight on the prelims is going to be in the light heavyweight division, and that is Marcin Prachnio versus Philippe Lins. Marcin Prachnio recently had a win over Isaac Villanueva, who was also on this card, and that was he won in a round 2 knockout, and that was at UFC Fight Night, a UFC Fight Night that was on June of 2021. And Philippe Lens is coming off of a loss via KO, via knockout, technical knockout in round 1 against Tanner Boser, which he originally was supposed to be on this card, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But that was at UFC Fight Night, a UFC Fight Night that they had back in June of 2020. So he's hasn't fought for almost 2 years, let's see. So then we've also got the next fight is going to be in the bantamweight division, and that is Richie Long versus Cameron Else. And Richie Long is coming off of a loss via unanimous decision to Cody Durden, and that was on a UFC Fight Night from November 2021. Cameron Else is also coming off of a loss via knockout, technical knockout in round 2 against Kyler Phillips from a UFC Fight Night in October of 2020. And so at least for this fight, I think that Richie Long will end up winning this fight. I think that he certainly has what it takes to get a finish in this fight here. So the next fight in the prelims is I'm really excited actually for this one. I'm excited for all of them, but definitely for this one because Tyson Pedro is going to be fighting Ike Villanueva in the light heavyweight division. And if you haven't heard of Tyson Pedro or have not heard his name in a little while, it's because he's been out and had multiple knee surgeries, and he's returning from the last fight that he had was in December 2018 for a UFC Fight Night, and against he was fighting Mauricio Shogun Rua, and he lost via knockout in round 3 of that fight. And he also had a fight that was scheduled against Vinicius Moreira, but he's had multiple knee surgeries, and he's been on the road back to fighting again in the UFC. He's had multiple notable fights against some high-level competitors, and Ike Villanueva is from Houston, Texas, so I am definitely always excited to see him fight, as that's my hometown. And but unfortunately, he's coming off of a loss via TKO in round 1 against Nikolai Negumorano, and that was from UFC Fight Night from October 2021. And so I think this is going to be a really competitive fight. I don't see this fight going anywhere else but staying on the feet. And it'll be interesting to see how Tyson Pedro does after he's had a layoff for a few years and had these knee surgeries and everything. So, hope he's healthy. And apparently he's been training with Tai Tuivasa, and believe he also may train with Robert Whittaker, I think, and Israel Adesanya. So he's definitely got high-level training partners, whenever he does train with them. And as Tai Tuivasa is, he's on a win streak, and obviously Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya, the current middleweight champ, and Robert Whittaker being the former middleweight champ, and that's definitely some good folks to be training with. So I think that at least my prediction in this fight, though, is that I think that that Ike Villanueva will get a victory. Not exactly sure how. I could definitely see this going the distance to a decision, though. It's certainly possible that this could end up in a knockout of some sort, but I think it might end up in a decision, more than likely. But next fight is In the welterweight division, it's Dwight Grant versus Sergey Kendosko. And Dwight Grant is coming off of a loss via split decision versus Francisco Trinaldo. And that was at UFC Fight Night that took place in October of 2021. And Sergey Kendosko is coming off of a loss as well via unanimous decision against Rustam Khabilov. And that's from a UFC Fight Night from November 2019. So it's been a couple years ago, or actually almost, about 2.5 years ago. So I don't know how this fight's going to go. It'll be really interesting to see how it does go. But my prediction is that Dwight Grant will end up getting the victory in this fight. The next one up on the prelims is Jordan Wright versus Marc-Andre Barriault. And this is for catchweight. So these guys usually fight at middleweight, I believe, if I'm correct. But I think that as far as catchweight, of course, that means that it's not at a standard weight as far as weight classes are concerned. So I think that if this is going to be if this is going to end up being a catchweight fight, I think it probably will end up being somewhere around 190 pounds, maybe. If these guys, I thought they did fight at middleweight. So if that's the case, I think it might be like 190, something like that, because usually middleweight's 185. So I don't think that usually with catchweight they end up going down below their weight class. And I'm kind of curious why this is at catchweight instead of at middleweight, because it's interesting though when these things end up happening. I mean, you don't see catchweight fights that often, but when you do, you see them, I think, typically at a heavier weight than what they usually fight at. So we'll see what that ends up being, but that's my guess, at least. So Jordan Wright is coming off of a loss via round 1 TKO against Bruno Silva, and that was at UFC 269 back in December of 2021. So it's been about a year and a half or something. Oh no, I'm sorry, not a year and a half. It's been about about a few months since he had a fight. So we'll see how this one ends up going. Marc-Andre Barriault had a pretty stunning a loss via round 1 KO against Chidi Njokuani. And Chidi Njokuani, man, this guy, I mean, just left everything out in the cage, and he was, I forgot if he hit Barriault with a knee or something or whichever. He hit him with several things, but just got him up against the cage and just knocked him clean out. And that was from UFC Fight Night from February of this year, of 2022. So Barriault having the more recent fight, of course, even coming off of loss via TKO, KO, knockout. I think that that Barriault's going to end up getting the victory on this fight here. And the last fight on the prelims is not what was originally scheduled. It was originally supposed to be Louis Cosce versus Preston Parsons, but that has been changed apparently because Cosce is apparently out due to COVID-19 protocol. So I'm assuming that he must have tested positive for COVID. Sounds like that they're still doing COVID testing for fighters. And so I guess if they end up testing positive, they don't get to fight, which is a bummer. So Evan Elder has stepped in, and so this will be Preston Parsons versus Evan Elder in the welterweight division. Preston Parsons is coming off of a loss via KO, TKO, and round 1 versus Daniel Rodriguez, and that was from UFC Fight Night back in July 2021. And Evan Elder, this will be his UFC debut. He's on a 7-fight win streak, and he's been fighting, I believe, in Shamrock FC, which I think is in St. Louis or out of Missouri, and that's where he's from. But and his last fight was December 2021. So these guys have had recent fights within the last year or so. As far as this goes, I think Evan Elder is going to have a good debut. I think it's certainly possible, and my prediction is that he will end up winning this fight. Again, not sure how, but that's who I predict will win. The first fight on the main card is in the flyweight division, and this is number 12 ranked Sumadarji versus Manel Kopp. 14 ranked Manel Kopp. And so Sumadarji is coming off of a win via unanimous decision against Zaruk Adashev. And that was from UFC Fight Night back in January of 2021. And Manel Kopp is coming off of a win via round 1 KO TKO versus Zalgas Zumagulov, and that was from UFC Fight Night at the very end of last year in December of 2021. So both have had somewhat recent fights. Of course, Manel Kopp having the more recent one, and I imagine that Sumadarji probably is having. He's probably had some issue getting out of his country and able to get over to the United States to fight since and of course the UFC's had their events that they haven't had one in a while on Fight Island, but maybe they'll be doing that again at some point in time. Certainly makes it easier for those international those fighters that are from other places around the globe, and makes it easier for everybody to get there, I think, sometimes. So anyway, as far as this fight goes, I mean, both of these guys are extremely active, very in amazing shape, and I think that it's going to be a very competitive fight, but I believe that Manel Kopp will end up getting the victory for this fight. The next fight is another one I'm excited for. It's number 14 Macy Barber versus Montana De La Rosa, and this is going to be in the women's flyweight division. Macy Barber is coming off of a victory via split decision over Miranda Maverick, and that was at UFC Fight Night back in July 2021. And she was on Dana White's Contender Series in 2018, and has had a lot of notable fights, some victories and some defeats, but she is extremely competitive. And what I understand, I believe she, she's got a wrestling background and is I believe she's I can't remember. I think she's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. And then Montana De La Rosa is coming off of a win via TKO or technical knockout over Ariane Lipsky. And that fight was from UFC Fight Night back in June of 2021. So they both have had pretty recent fights as of, not quite a year ago. But I think that this will end up being a really interesting fight to see. And Macy Barber, is definitely highly competitive, as is Montana De La Rosa. But I think that De La Rosa is going to get the victory for this event. And so next up on the main card is going to be Lando Venata versus Charles Jourdain, and that's going to be in the featherweight division. Lando Venata's been around the UFC for a good bit of time. Had, I think, some pretty notable fights, but he is coming off of a win via split decision against Mike Grundy, and that was at UFC 262 back in May of 2021. And Charles Jourdain is coming off of a win via unanimous decision against Andre Ewell, and that was from UFC Fight Night back in December 2021, so he's had a more recent fight. But he was supposed to fight at UFC 270, but for whatever reason, it was canceled. He was supposed to be fighting Ilya Topuria, which Ilya Topuria ended up fighting on that card anyway. So I think something either happened. I don't know what happened with Charles Jourdain. Then I don't know if it was some COVID related thing or if it was some sort of injury or so he obviously had to drop out of the fight for some reason. But so it'd be interesting to see how this fight ends up going. I think that this will be a really good fight. But I predict that Lando Venata will end up getting the win. Next up, this is really exciting. I'm really excited to see Clay Guida continue to be as active as he is. I believe I think he's 40 years old now. I don't know if he's over 40, but he's certainly been around the UFC for a long time, had a lot of really great fights. My all-time favorite fight, it's definitely one of my favorites for sure, was his fight against Diego Sanchez, and I don't even remember what year that was, but it's been a while since that fight happened. But Clay Guida is still just as competitive now as he was then. Like, it doesn't seem like he's really tired out that much. He had another fight against, trying to remember what his name was, because he just fought, Vince Pichel, Mark Madsen, and Clay Guida. Of course, Mark Madsen's like well-known wrestler, like Greco-Roman wrestler, I think. And I think he's, if I remember right, he was he's from Denmark, but he ended up winning like Olympic medal of some sort. But Clay Guida ended up beating him in a previous fight a couple fights ago. So Clay is going to be fighting Claudio Puelles, and who I believe is from Peru. And so Clay Guida is coming off of a win, and I believe this is his fight after Mark Madsen. And so this was December of last year in 2021. But he got a win in a round 2 submission via rear naked choke against Leonardo Santos, which that was I think Clay was getting banged up a little bit, but he ended up getting into a great position to get a hook in and get a rear naked choke to win that fight. And then Claudio Puelles is coming off of a win, and this is he actually also had a round 3 submission via knee bar against Chris Gritzmacher, and that was at UFC Fight Night in 2021 or December 2021 too. I don't think it was the same one, but they might have been on the same event, which is kind of funny because there's several of these fighters from this particular event that have been either on the same events, like they've been on the same events before, or they've fought very similar people. So, which isn't super surprising considering they're in the same division. But this is in the lightweight division. But my prediction is that Clay Guida will end up winning this fight against Puelles, and not sure how it will go as far as how he will win. But I think that he has a good chance of either knocking Puelles out or getting a submission over him. The next fight is the final fight before the main event, and this is going to be in the heavyweight division. This is not what was originally scheduled, but it was originally supposed to be Alexander Romanov versus Tanner Boser, and unfortunately Boser has had to pull out due to an injury of some sort. Not sure exactly what specifically that injury is, but Chase Sherman has stepped in. So now we've got Alexander Romanov versus Chase Sherman for the heavyweight fight. And Alexander Romanov is coming off of a win via round 2 knockout, technical knockout of Jared Vanderaa, who Jared Vanderaa just fought Alexei Olenek and was had to tap due to and lost via submission. But this was so Alexander Romanov fought Jared Vanderaa at a UFC Fight Night in October 2021. And Chase Sherman is coming off of a loss from a round 1 submission, rear naked choke from Jake Collier. And Jake Collier definitely, was all over Sherman, just wore him down. And so that's one thing I'm curious about in this fight here. But that fight was from actually Fight Night back in January 2022, so just a few months back. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this fight goes. I'm kind of curious if how, who's going to be able to, for one, either get the shots in early, or who will be able to have the gas tank to outlast the other. So I think it comes down to Alexander Romanov being able to get a finish somewhat sooner. Chase Sherman certainly has gone the distance in fights before, but I'm really curious to see how this is going to go. But I think that that Alexander Romanov will end up getting a victory here, and I don't see this fight going 3 rounds. It could be, but I think it's very unlikely that will end up happening. So, and then now we're on to the main event of the evening, and that will be in the women's strawweight division. Number 10, Amanda Lemos versus the number 1 flyweight, Jessica Andrade. She is back in the strawweight division after being in the flyweight, after competing in the women's flyweight division and competing to fight Valentina Shevchenko for the women's flyweight title. Unfortunately, she ended up losing via submission in that fight. And Valentina Shevchenko, definitely one of the most dominant women's fighters out of all divisions. And so it'll be interesting to see how this fight goes. Certainly have watched Amanda Lemos's fights, and but it's going to be interesting though to see Jessica Andrade get back into this division again. I'm not sure if she's she's trying to make a run back to the strawweight title, and certainly think that she has the capability of doing that. And obviously she, it's interesting though to see her being not the first named fighter in this fight, and of course she's got her ranking as a flyweight, but it is strange to see her not have a rank in the strawweight division at the same time, which I think that usually you can have rankings if you've fought in multiple divisions. But either way, I think that, this will be a very competitive fight. I think it'll be a very tough fight for Amanda Lemos. And but either way, Amanda Lemos is coming off of a win via split decision over Angela Hill, and that was at a UFC Fight Night back in December of 2021, so just a few months back. And then Jessica Andrade is coming off of a win via TKO against Cynthia Calvillo, and that was from UFC 266 in September 2021, so not super long ago, but that was a flyweight fight. That was her. So I don't know if she's looking to just compete in the strawweight division going forward, or if she will I guess it may depend on how this fight ends up going for her, whether she, decides she wants to return back to the flyweight division or if she wants to continue in the strawweight division. My opinion is that I believe Jessica Andrade is going to get a victory on this fight, and I don't know if it will last. I don't know if this is a 5-round fight, but I imagine it probably is. And being a main event, of course, and stuff, usually you don't have a 3-round fight most of the time for a main event at all, whether it's for a championship or not. So I think, yeah, Jessica Andrade is going to get a win. I would imagine that this is going to be some sort of finish for her. I mean, but anything can happen. But that is my prediction. And, so I think this will be a really exciting fight night, and I think they're all really exciting. It's really fun to be able to have these events and have more of them available for people. If you have ESPN Plus, and hopefully we'll see some more events on ABC like they had done with Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar some time ago. That was pretty fun. So I think we'll eventually start to see more of that stuff happen, where you're not necessarily having to buy pay-per-views all the time. But I think it seems like that's the goal for the UFC, to be even more mainstream in terms of being picked up by major network television stations like ABC or NBC or CBS or whichever. But it'll be interesting to see how that goes. So not only do we have this fight night on April 23rd, we have another fight night coming up on April 30th, Saturday, of course. And that'll be also at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas. And it's going to be Rob Font versus Marlon Vera. And that'll be the main event of that UFC fight night. And so it'll be interesting to see how that fight goes. I'm really excited for that one. Rob Font's really exciting to watch, and Marlon Vera has definitely become one of my favorite fighters, and he's definitely working his way up the division. So it'll be interesting to see how things go in that fight. But I'll certainly be previewing that one as well. And then obviously we cannot forget about UFC 274 that'll be coming up Saturday, May 7th, and that'll be taking place in Phoenix, Arizona at the Footprint Center. And I'll be previewing that one once we get closer to that one also. And that is, of course, the much anticipated lightweight title match against, it'll be Charles Oliveira, the lightweight champ, against Justin Gaethje. So really interested to seeing how that one will go. It was interesting to think about how it was going to go with Charles Oliveira and Dustin Poirier. So I have no idea. It's hard for me to even think about that, who will end up winning that fight at this point in time. But and then of course the defending strawweight champ Rose Namajunas is going to have a fight against Carla Esparza. We haven't seen these two fight since they fought for the inaugural strawweight title from the Ultimate Fighter, and Carla Esparza having won the strawweight title again in that fight. And so it'll be really interesting to see how this fight goes whenever that when that happens. So until next weekend, or until the next fight night, I will see you. So the next fight night for next weekend, I will certainly see you then. Thanks for watching.